Welcome to 10X Live, the show where we're revolutionizing business, one strategy at a time. At 10X Solutions, we have a bold vision to democratize business excellence. We believe every organization deserves the tools to thrive. Our secret sauce, the perfect blend of cutting-edge AI, the proven power of organizational health, and growth management. We assembled genius teams equipped with advanced analytics to supercharge decision-making and skyrocket efficiency. From AI-augmented strategy sessions that spark creativity to precise planning powered by human ingenuity, we're your catalyst for sustainable growth. We keep it real, we keep it honest, and we keep you ahead of the curve. Join us for the 10X revolution. We're not just adapting to change, we're leading it. Let's map out a future where your business doesn't just survive, it thrives. This is 10X Live. Let's transform business together.
Hello, welcome to 10X Live. We are here excited about another new day and an opportunity to continue some good discussion. I'm Denise Nowell, and I get to be your co-host today. I am with a small organization called Impact 3, and within that organization, I am a Working Genius facilitator, and then I also offer journey mentoring coaching. We center our coaching around clients who are looking to move forward in their business careers and in their lives, and love working with Jay. So Jay, I'll just introduce you as well. So thank you, Jay Scott. Thank you for all that you're doing for 10X Solutions.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for joining us again. It's so great to have you.
Good. So we want to recognize the date today. So 9/11, thankful for.
Well, I think we might have lost you, Denise. Oh, there you are.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
You're back.
Okay.
You're back.
There we are. Okay, great. Well, we want to acknowledge that today is the anniversary of 9/11, and so grateful to have another anniversary where we have been safe and we have had no more incidents like that. But it might be a good discussion. Jay, where were you on 9/11?
So when I first heard, I was on the way to work. So I live in California, so it was still pretty early. And then a lot of speculation and fear on the way to work, but we didn't know we were under attack yet, because at that time I think that the second plane hadn't hit. So there was still a lot of confusion, still like, are we under attack? That the towers were hit with a plane. It was kind of just a lot of confusion. And then I got to work either just in time to watch a replay or watch it happen, but somebody had brought a little TV and set it up in the middle of the shop, kind of the break room, I guess. And so we were watching it, and then watched the second tower collapse. And then it was just nobody knew what to say, or the second plane hit. We know, but at the point of realizing we were under attack, and yeah, it was just mind blowing.
Yeah. For me, I was with a group of friends. We were actually en route to another friend's funeral, and we had just tried to pile in as many of us as possible into this big vehicle. And so we all piled our bags into the back. And we stopped about midway. It was like a 2.5 hour drive. We stopped midway, and on the last 30 or 40 minutes of the drive, we just kept hearing like phones going off in the trunk of the car. And we were like, that is weird. And so we got to a place where we just stopped and grabbed some breakfast, and it was just so surreal. And one of the phones that had been going off constantly in the back of the car was one of my friends who was with the National Guard, and she'd already been called up. So it was rough. And when we got to the funeral, we were actually driving 2.5 hours north. And then a friend of ours had been driving from Pennsylvania south to meet us at the funeral. And we got there, and about the time of the service starting, we found out about the plane that had gone down in Pennsylvania, which our
Right.
friend who had driven from Pennsylvania, it was about an hour from where she lived. So it was just very, it was very surreal, but it was also very close to home for all of us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the close to home thing is, is something, I don't know. With 9/11, it didn't feel, it felt like as a nation we were under attack, but being in California, like there was a distance there. Like it did feel
Mhm.
distant. But then, I don't know, it made me think of it. Do you remember, man, 10 or 15 years ago, the Boston Marathon bombing? I,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the time I was working, at Lifeway, and I had a friend, a coworker who was from China. Yeah, he had, not that that matters, except that he had a friend who was also from China that was at the
Mhm.
marathon. And the day after, I'm talking with him, and he's worried because he hasn't been in touch with her,
Sure.
since the bombing and everything. And found out she was one of the victims. You know,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and just
Wow.
and there was I remember, like, even thinking about 9/11, I'm saying that in remembrance because oftentimes it takes something like that for it to impact us, how close to home some of these things are. And it was
It's true.
devastating, it was confusing, it
Mhm.
was, you know we were under attack, you know but it took something a few years later for me to really kind of recognize how
Mhm.
close that could have been to me.
Mm, I understand. Yeah, for us, for my family in particular, I have family that lives overseas in the Philippines, and so when this happened on 9/11, we already had, my brothers and I had tickets to fly to the Philippines because my sister was getting married. And so I was actually just commenting to my husband last night saying what a miracle it was that within 5 weeks, the skies were safe enough and we felt like um, travel was safe enough that we were able actually to fly in October and be there for
Wow.
the event. So that's,
Yeah,
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 that's a testament to the fact that we are resilient, right?
that's right.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. In 23 years, and still not another attack. No, there's still a lot of problems, and it's not like we've
right.
solved terrorism or,
Yeah,
but we've been safe.
yeah, we have been. Yeah. And speaking of resilience, like that's something that we want to help build for our small and medium sized business owners, right? Is
Absolutely.
resilience through helping them. And then what you're doing through um, 10x Solutions is helping democratize business excellence, which is
Hmm.
I love that phrase. I every time I say it, I'm like, that's such a great phrase. You should TM it. Oh goodness! So we're working through a manifesto that you've walked us through several weeks now, and so where are we today, and where are we headed?
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about inclusive excellence. So it's the sixth principle of the hardcore psychological safety manifesto for small businesses.
It's a
And
mouthful.
but it's fun, right? I mean, if it's a
It is.
manifesto, it should have that punch, right? It's the
Yes.
hardcore psychological safety manifesto for small businesses.
Oh.
Dang it. um, so we're on principle 6, and so the concept of the manifesto came out of my experience and research and with management and leadership, working with and understanding psychological safety, what it
Mhm,
is, how important it is as a foundation of a team, for a team
mhm,
within an organization or any team, whether it's a
mhm,
sports team or a leadership team. Um, and when I was reading Elon Musk's biography, it was something that he was like offended by, the idea of
mhm,
psychological safety. And without getting into the full context, I just think that he misunderstood it. I think
sure.
he thought psychological safety meant complacency, lack of innovation, not calling each other out, not having difficult
Mhm.
conversations, get
A
away
little
with it, get it
soft.
right. Yeah, very
Mhm,
soft. Yeah.
mhm.
And so his knee jerk reaction was, no, not hard, not psychological safety. We're hardcore. That's our value.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, can you be both? Was the question.
Mhm, mhm,
And I started thinking, how, what would that look like if you were both? What if you were so passionately driven to accomplish the purpose you set out for that everybody knows where they stand in the organization, on the team, how to communicate, can challenge each other, can screw up, can say, I'm sorry, can keep pushing the ball forward, making amazing things happen in a very difficult, challenging, hardcore way, right? Driving the ball forward with massive purpose.
Yes.
Can we synergize these things?
Mm.
And I think the answer was yes. And so that's so the manifesto at first was kind of a test. So what would it look like if we merged these things? And
Right.
AI helped with that, right? So it was kind of, had a couple long conversations, kind of posted those notes, kind of went and said, give me a couple versions of the blending of these ideas, and then worked it through, and it was okay. There's something here.
Yeah.
So just real quick, we're not going to go, we don't spend the whole time doing a recap on everything. Just real quick. So the first principle is gravity of purpose. And the idea is that you have to have a purpose so strong that it pulls everything to it. Policies, people, practices, customers, everything. Everything should be, you think about now I'm thinking about Einstein, where gravity is the bending of time and space around objects, right? But in a lot of ways, your purpose should be so big that everything around it bends towards it.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Right? If gravity can bend light, it should also change behavior.
That's right. That's right.
So then you also have to protect it, right? So you have to protect psychological safety, and this is part of the hardcore thing. Is you need to be fierce in how you protect it. Do not let things in that won't. And if they're in, address them aggressively, kindly, right? You want to be a passionate, empathetic leader in your approach, but aggressively cut things that are going to harm the psychological safety of the team.
Yeah. And minimize the threat to that trust.
Yeah. Because it always has to be worked on. It's not like you can go one, done, boom, bam, okay, we solved it. It's true. Every day, the clock resets on it.
That's right. You're right. You're right.
So then with that same thing in mind, you also have to have consistent compass checks, where this could be a book in itself, and I won't go into it as much as I would want to, because this was really cool, combining the theory of constraints with Elon Musk's algorithm with psychological safety to create basically a step-by-step process of making sure that your processes and your behaviors and everything that you're doing is continuing to move the ball forward.
Yeah. And that consistency in compass checks of preventing mission drift. There's a book called Mission Drift that is amazing. And it just walks you through so many organizations that started out well, but because they didn't have that consistent check, they were caught in that drift.
Yeah. And I recommend it at least quarterly. That at least quarterly you have an honest discussion about, are we still on course? Because one of the things that happens too is oftentimes decisions are made that weren't the best decision, or can be improved, or there's processes in place that are no longer needed, or sometimes there's new processes in place because things have changed. But sometimes we get so caught up in the inertia of how we're already operating that it requires us to step back and challenge those things again. We also tend to be very protective of the things that we've invested time into, whether it's our time or mental energy, creative energy. We protect those things fiercely. So it's good to also be a part of an environment that says everything's challenged. Yes. Thank you. It was great, but may need to go.
Actually, the discussion that you and Kyle had a few weeks ago around this topic was so powerful. If you haven't watched that, I would recommend going back and finding that one and watching it, because Kyle made some great points around the fact that just because I created something, I've invested blood, sweat, and tears in it, doesn't mean that there might not be something better down the road. But that can be hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And part of that leads to the next one, which is, you mentioned Kyle, Miss Kyle. If you're watching, I hope you are. Love you and miss you. But the three of us had the opportunity to discuss this one, embracing discomfort. You want to break it down? We were talking about?
Yeah, just like that as a catalyst for growth when everyone is working toward the same thing. there is this power that comes from being galvanized around the idea or the project or the goal that we're headed toward. And when everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction, one, we're going to get there so much faster, and it's going to really minimize a lot of discomfort, because we're embracing discomfort, right? But it's going to minimize discomfort because we're willing to say, we want this badly enough that we will do the hard work to get there. I think, yeah, that's a powerful one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's such a great way of saying it too, that we want this so much that we're willing to do the hard work.
That's right.
And
that's
you
right.
can't do that if you're not prepared for comfort, for discomfort. And that's that's kind of what the idea of embrace it is. It's not artificially manufactured discomfort, but no, it's going to come.
That's right.
And when it does, that's an opportunity.
Yeah. And it goes back to, I think, the value of making the goal so clear, because then actually I can see myself extending to the point of discomfort for the sake of the goal.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. If the purpose isn't worth sacrificing for, it's not a good enough purpose.
It's right. Correct. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
And then last week we talked about strategic surges.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and I think you did a little bit there, but you got to practice the kind of the principle of strategic surges and had some good results. Do you want to
Sure.
share that?
Sure. Thanks. Yes. Yeah. So with Journey Mentoring, the coaching program that I launched, I knew that in order to make some strides, I needed to just have like some concerted effort around a short amount of time where I just put everything out there, just like gave it 100%, or actually 150 as it was. And so that was around the same time that I heard Jay teaching about this. And I was like, oh my goodness, he's just put a label to what I'm doing, which is a strategic surge. And so actually, thanks to you, Jay, this is week 8 of me being on a strategic surge. I'm sorry, back up 7 of me being in a strategic surge of, okay, I will crush these goals weekly. I will do these things. And I have to say, I've not crushed them every week, but I have set them and it has driven me. And then what I've realized is that on the weeks that I've not met the goal to the degree that I thought I would, I've been able to pull back a little bit and go, well, then what have I accomplished? And how much have I learned from the process? And turns out I'm collecting some data, right. around this surge. And I'm collecting data around what does it take to actually get where I want to go in this finite amount of time that's kind of squeezed in, because I'm like doing it under a little bit of pressure, but I've applied it for myself.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, and I think you touched on all the principles so far.
Good.
In that too. It was, because why are you going to surge? Why are you going to, kind of really put forth above and beyond it is an uncomfortable amount of effort if you don't believe in what you're doing.
It's true. That's right.
And, and then, you're doing it regularly. Like you said, like data collecting, that is a form of consistent compass check. Right. That what are the results? Is it yielding the results it should? Because it shouldn't just be about effort, right? It's not okay, I need to put in 100 hours this week because I need to look like I'm being productive. Right. That's not, what are you accomplishing?
Yes.
I'd rather you put in 5 hours and accomplish something than 100 hours and not.
That's right. And that's a part, I think that is a component of when you're doing a strategic surge, there needs to be a look back at some point where you go, let's evaluate the results and see what did it get us. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
So leads to today. And today we're talking about inclusive excellence. So diversity breeds innovation. So seek it and embrace it. So a little bit more into that, just, and then, so this is straight from the manifesto. So this is how it reads. So excellence thrives in diversity and inclusion. Our commitment to psychological safety includes recognizing and valuing the unique contributions of each team member. By fostering an inclusive environment, we unlock our team's full potential, driving innovation and achieving remarkable results. This is a commitment to excellence, not pandering. Pandering will backfire.
Ah, so well said. So well said. And I'm just going to jump in, if that's okay, and say one of the things that I love about Working Genius, which is how you and I actually became connected with one another through this cohort, is Working Genius. The whole idea behind it is to find out where are the geniuses for you. How can you play to those strengths? And as I'm playing to my strengths, I'm increasing my value to the organization, but I'm also reminding myself that, oh, if I play to my strengths, then that means my weaknesses are somebody else's strengths. And so if I am including as many people as possible onto the team with as much of a variety of geniuses as possible, then I'm creating diversity within my team. And I think that is so brilliant. So brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Kyle. It's one of the things he always said is that the 6 types of Working Genius is an inclusivity tool.
Yes.
Right. Because it really does help break down barriers to understanding how we're different and how our differences can really work together.
That's right.
The old saying that where the sum becomes greater than the parts.
Yep.
Right.
Yep,
where
yep.
1 + 1 starts becoming 3, 4, 5 in value as
Yes.
opposed to just 2.
Yeah. And as far as the another piece around the inclusiveness is it also helps me lower judgment in so many areas, because I'm now no longer judging you because you don't find joy in certain work, but it's because you do find joy in other work. And so, like, if you look at our names at the bottom of the screen, J is wonder and invention, and mine is galvanizing and an encouragement, an enthusiastic encourager, which is galvanizing and encouragement. Enablement. I can't say my words today. So
in
for
some
me,
ways, it is both, right? Because the enablement is encouragement in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That's true. It's true. That's right. So Jay is able to wonder about the environment or wonder about the things that are going on around us, and then come up with ideas. He can invent something, where the next piece would be discernment is, okay, these ideas, are they actually seaworthy? Do we want to use those ideas? And then someone with galvanizing like me would come in and say, okay, I get it. We've made this decision and now we're moving forward. So let's actually tell the rest of the team this is where we're going. Enablement comes in after that and does some blocking and tackling to make sure that the things that need to get done can get done. And then tenacity comes and puts a bow on it and says, yeah, we did it. We finished. So where I was talking about the knowing your geniuses helps with inclusivity and helps to decrease judgment is I can now lessen my own judgment on myself because I am not the wonderer. And I don't want to go to a whiteboard that's blank, where Jay is happy to go to the whiteboard that's blank. Yeah. But I can also celebrate.
Half the meetings I've been in, I just found myself at the whiteboard without even thinking about it.
See, that's
I'm
gonna
hop up, grab a pen, and stand at the whiteboard kind of guy.
Good. Yeah. That's so good. Yes. Yes. And then neither of us have geniuses in tenacity or discernment. So when we find someone with those as their geniuses, we're like, oh, yes, thank you. Please come be part of our conversation because this is what we're missing. We need to be inclusive and we need the diversity of what you bring.
Yeah. And I love this too, because one of the things, like you said, Denise, that we met each other through the 6 Working Geniuses. And it's so much a part of everything that we do that it's, one of the cool things we're going through. Nowhere in the hardcore psychological safety manifesto does it say anything about the 6 types of Working Geniuses, but every single principle it's applied.
Yeah,
which is because it's one of those things. If it's work, the 6 Working Geniuses apply.
That's right.
And so it's really fun to see that. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it talks about the inclusivity and diversity of how we come to work, right? What we enjoy, to a small degree, what we're good at, but really kind of what gives us joy and energy, what we're drawn to, and what we're naturally inclined to. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What we're capable of producing without burning out. right?
Yes.
At a high
Right.
level. So that is absolutely, that's a huge form of diversity
Mhm.
that we, and
Mhm. Mhm.
inclusivity, that when you think about, um, oftentimes we think of
Yep.
gender diversity, racial
Mhm.
diversity,
Mhm.
other, political diversity,
Sure. Sure.
um, other forms of diversity. There,
Yeah.
disability is a type
Sure.
of diversity as well.
Sure.
And
And
including
I think that
that.
we're living in such a great time, generation wise, because one, we're so much more globally connected than we used to be.
Mhm.
So when I grew up in the Philippines, there was a lag, like pop culture and slang and books and movies and all that stuff. There was about sometimes an 8 to 10 year
Mhm.
lag. So when we would come back to America every few years, we were like, not on the same page, right?
Right.
But now we are so much more globally connected that it's
Mhm.
everywhere instantly. And then another thing that I think is so great about living in this generation is we are also so we are reaping so many good rewards from amazing inventors and amazing ideators who have done things like make it possible for people with disabilities to be more connected to the workforce, right?
Right. Right.
And made it more possible for us to connect with them in ways where what we're bringing to them is the value, and then what they're bringing to us is a value. And so I feel like we have so much more opportunity to do a good job of diversity and inclusion now than we have had in the past.
Yeah.
Not because we weren't able to in the past, but it might just not have been on our radar.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Uh-oh, I think we're frozen.
are
Oh,
we?
there we are. Okay,
Okay.
we're back.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of waiting a second because when you said that, everything froze for me. Everything was fine, and then when you said it's back, everything froze. So
I'll just keep my
we're,
mouth.
we're like playing tennis, just hitting the ball back and forth. Um, yeah. So and one of the things, like, okay, so like it's mentioned in there, and it's important to talk about the idea of not pandering, right?
Mhm,
Because I
mhm,
think one of the things, and I don't want to be political on this show, and I don't want to talk about controversial subjects, but
mhm.
I do think that if you are if you force diversity onto people, then it's going to backfire.
Yeah.
I think that an organization, and so that's kind of the idea, is I think a hardcore psychologically safe company
Mhm,
embraces diversity,
mhm,
right? It's a
mhm.
it's a choice for recognizing the contributions and values of everybody, and
Right,
also
right.
it's a
Which
smart decision.
it is a smart decision, which requires a healthy, strong, self-aware leader, right? Because if I am creating an organization and we all believe that it flows from the head down, right, from the top down, then as a healthy, secure, aware leader,
Yeah,
I I don't like to use the word should, but I would be more open to saying what's going to create the best team for us.
right.
Right. And I think there's some statistics around leadership that embraces diversity that I think is also beneficial. So, yeah, yeah,
I'm falling apart over here.
you are. But we're here for all of it. Yeah, I got your back.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of those we'll look at that. So diversity
Yeah.
affects financial performance.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we don't
Mm-hmm.
think about these things, and it doesn't guarantee, right? It's not like having a
Sure.
diverse team is going to guarantee financial performance, but it does say like that it's 35% more likely to
Yeah.
have returns above the
Mm-hmm.
mean. They're above their
Mm-hmm.
industry, so there's a
Mm-hmm.
higher, have a much higher likelihood.
Yeah.
Was reading
And if
articles.
I could just, oh, go ahead. Can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
If I could jump in on that. So put that back up if you don't mind.
Hmm.
Yeah. So 35% more likely to have financial returns above their industry mean. Okay. So this is a company that we're saying that is ethnically and racially diverse. So if, depending
In
on the kind of
management, yeah.
company, pardon, in management.
Mhm.
Yes. Thank you. So if I have a company that is growing and I am um, growing my management team to include people of so much variety,
Mhm.
then it would just make sense that my reach is further as well. Because, I just, my background, I speak two Filipino languages, which I'm grateful for, but I knew one of the jobs that I took put me in an arena where there were a lot of people from another culture, and I knew I needed to go find someone whose first language was that language, right?
Right.
And that actually set us apart. At the time, it was a contract that I was managing, and there were 13 different contracts within this one county for what we were doing. And we were the first ones that brought in someone that spoke this other language. And it just like set us up, which was
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
so, I love that. It's interesting too. Like I was reading some articles on the subject, and there was one from Harvard Business Review. I love their stuff. I'm always reading it, but it was going through some different studies, and one of the things they were showing was there was so for instance there so the study, and I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but the study was they had they took, like, basically it was like mock jurors,
mm,
and given all the evidence of a case of
mhm,
it was it was black crime against somebody who was white
mm,
was the case. And they gave, like, so they would have, like, basically have a full juror of white jurors that would review the case. And this was an experiment. So this was, the case may have been real, but like, but
mm.
they just ran this experiment like 200 times.
Okay.
And so what they had, so the control group was like basically all white, and then the non-control group, the more diverse group, was there were also two black people in that group as well. And what they found was the group that was diverse had more was using facts,
Mm,
like factually,
mhm,
where the other group was not. Like, a lot of the
mhm,
decisions they made and things they found were not rooted in facts, or had gotten the
mm,
facts wrong.
mm,
And so
mhm,
there was a lot, they were able to identify the facts
mm,
a lot easier, and
mm,
then make a decision based on the facts a lot easier,
mm.
just by having that diversity in there.
That's
um
great.
and I don't think it's a racial thing in that sense. I think, it's a good example of diversity. I think that when we,
I think you're right. I think you're
when
right. And what popped in my mind as you were talking about that was, I wonder how often, without recognizing it, when we are so similar instead of being diverse, do we get caught in groupthink
Mhm,
because there's no one with an outside viewpoint
right,
to just disrupt it,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good thing to kind of spend a little time thinking on that.
right. Yeah, and it's one of
Hmm.
those things where it's difficult too, because, as um we are social animals, right? And
Hmm.
we we desire to hang out and be with, and around, and
Yeah.
people who are similar to us,
Mm,
similar personality, similar looks,
mm,
similar everything, and everybody does it, right? Like, we're all
mm.
kind of drawn in that same way. So in a lot of ways, when it comes to business, you have to be very intentional about it, because
Yeah.
naturally we're not going to want to. Naturally, we're
Mhm.
going to want to hire somebody who's like us. And I think
Mm,
that's part of the idea is, don't hire somebody who's like you. Hire somebody who's going
mhm,
to provide, challenge you in perspective,
mhm.
um, and actually, I would love to just pass it to you as a third,
Yeah.
TCK, we've
Third
talked
culture
like,
kid.
as a
Yeah.
third kid,
Yeah.
having experienced diversity in unique ways. You could
Yes.
probably speak to the benefits of
Yeah.
having, come from multiple cultures, and kind of, being in that
Yeah.
environment. And I think you have a better understanding of how
Mm.
that benefits even you,
Phew.
and
Yeah.
then how you can apply that to a team, and
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for just a few minutes to like maybe rant on it a little bit. But
Mhm,
I truly do, because even when you were saying that, I totally agree that we are so socially wired, socially
mhm,
hardwired and geared. Um, but when you were saying that most of us want to gather with people that look like us and sound like us, my first instinct was, well, I'm not sure, because being reared in in another country, I wasn't ever around, I mean, except for my siblings, and then the occasional time we were with other American families, or British families or whatever. Like, most of my rearing days were around people that were different. And I actually
Yeah.
love that.
Right.
I do love that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's
Well,
good.
and what do you
And
love
I
about
think
that too?
it's
Like, how do you, like, I guess, like, what do you feel like it has had an impact on you as an individual that sets you apart,
yeah.
from others who didn't have that experience?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is, it's going to sound cliche, but I just don't see color.
Hmm.
Like, I genuinely see people. And I used to tell people when I first came to America for college, I was almost 19. I didn't understand colloquialism. I didn't understand a lot of like our jokes, and oh, definitely
Yeah.
not sarcasm or whatever. And I just told people I wished that I had darker skin because I felt way more Filipino than I felt American.
Right.
Um, and I do think sometimes, wow, wouldn't it be great if more of us were colorblind, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because there are amazing people in all walks of life, in so many different um, arenas of work that has nothing to do with color. It has to do with what did they decide to do with their life, and what's their purpose, and what are they doing with it now. And so I guess
Yeah.
the most unique piece for me, I would say, is just, yeah, I love inclusivity. I used to tell people when it first became more mainstream to talk about diversity, I was like, I grew up diverse, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
was the
Preaching to
minority.
the choir here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll date myself a little bit, but my family went to the Philippines, there hadn't been too many years removed from when the Filipinos and the Americans were fighting together during World War II. So there
Mhm.
was this really strong desire for connection with Americans, and so yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
great.
I love
So
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And even, I'll put this other thing up here too. There's, just even decision making, like how it affects things.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, the thought that I keep coming back to. Have you ever seen World War Z?
Mm-mm. I have
So
to write
it's
that down.
it's a zombie movie. It's
Oh, that's why I
yeah,
haven't seen it.
probably, yeah. It's
Actually, I'm not writing it down.
right. That's why I told you. I figured you may not want to, but I'll tell you that right away. Um, so, but it's called World War Z, and I bring it up because there's, it's basically, the zombie apocalypse is happening. Brad Pitt is a specialist sent to try and find, a solution to the problem, and it's happening so fast, like basically the world's collapsed, from it. And the only nation that was surviving was Israel, and because Israel
Mm,
had put up a wall.
mm,
And but it was interesting, and it's so that's not really the subject, but the subject is, the reason why was they, in the movie, and I don't know how true this is. This might be something they do politically, but they have what's called the 10th man. And what
mm,
the 10th man is if the other 9 all agree, the 10th
mhm.
man's responsibility is to disagree and
Wow.
to do all the research and start
Oh
taking
my
action
goodness.
as if they're correct.
Great.
So it
That's
doesn't even
great.
matter what they think. It's
Wow.
if everybody agrees, the 10th man is
Okay.
required to disagree and take action as if everybody
Mm.
else is wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's, that's not diversity as much, but I think it's like, I keep thinking about that in a similar way, that having in a lot of ways, adding diversity to your team is like adding a 10th man. It's
Sure.
somebody who can look
Sure.
at things slightly different, add a
Yes.
perspective, have questions that may be different. Just,
Yeah.
just upbringing and the experience and how we think
That's right.
about things
That's
is
right. Yeah.
valuable,
It's
incredibly
so,
valuable.
so valuable.
And
Okay,
it's
so I'm
right.
still
It's the
not
right
going
thing
to
to do
watch
too.
the movie, but I will definitely use the phrase "the 10th man." I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's
So
really
I
good.
don't, that's where I learned it from. So if it's, yeah, if I think it
Okay.
applies, yeah, I
That's
think it's
so
actually
good. Yeah,
true.
it
Yeah.
does apply. It does
Yeah.
apply because just the breadth of knowledge is I
Yeah.
mean, you 10x
Hmm. Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
By having
Exactly.
diversity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And I think, and so I was thinking about that when, getting ready to pull this graphic up,
Mhm.
is that diverse by design teams make better decisions than homogenous ones by
Yes.
87% and are
Brilliant.
70% more likely to capture new markets. And I think that's kind of, similar to, the 10th man
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
sense.
And, a piece that we may not have time to dive into, but
Mhm.
I think diversity within age range is also so important
Absolutely. Yeah.
because
Mhm.
we need some of the folks with the gray hair, right?
Mhm.
But we definitely need the ones who are just out of high school or just out of college. Some of my favorite teams that I've ever worked on were the teams that were open to me bringing in the younger generation and mentoring them to then be some of the leaders in our groups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I think
awesome.
that's super good.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think we mentioned it yet, but today's going to be a shorter stream. So we're going to be ending in about 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. So everybody
Yeah.
knows. So before we do, I do want to just kind of put the HR hat on for a second. Because we are
Okay.
talking about inclusion.
Yes.
And so it falls into a kind of a broader kind of class of things, which in the HR world, we usually call DEI, which is
Mm-hmm.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's now they're adding B to it, which is belonging. So
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody knows so diversity is really about how diverse a team is, right? It's like you can actually measure how diverse an organization or a team is based
Mm-hmm.
on demographics, right?
Right.
And then equity is about fair pay, right? About fair
Yeah.
pay and fair benefits and total
Mm-hmm.
rewards and
Mm-hmm.
more than that too, right? But that everybody's offered this, it gets the same thing,
Sure.
and that is absolutely commendable. If I think if you're
Yes.
not doing that, then I don't want to do business with you, and we
Right.
stop
That's
watching,
right.
leave.
Yes.
But the part, and I'm bringing this up because the part that I do want to say, the part that oftentimes companies fail at is the inclusive part, right?
Sure.
Because, and this is why I say pandering doesn't work, because when people pander, what happens is you end up you can meet the numbers for diversity and equity very easily,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? I can hire a couple people to change to change the demographics, and I
Mm-hmm.
can make sure everybody's paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? They're still going to feel ostracized in meetings. They're still going to be in the outside. They're not going to be invited to lunch as much. They're going to be cliques are going to form that are not going to include them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do all the diversity and equity and
Mm-hmm.
fail inclusion. Absolutely
Sure.
fail inclusion. And I
Sure.
think inclusion is equally as important. So that's, I just kind of want to clarify that so everybody kind of knows that they
Yes.
are different things: diversity,
Yeah.
equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And I think they're very, very good things,
Mhm.
unless they're forced. Then what ends up
Sure.
happening is you end up forced into the D and E, and the
Yeah,
I becomes very toxic.
that's right. Agreed. Agreed. And I just think an example of that is the teenager who is so ready to do their own thing, and the parents are still demanding things that, you know what? The best way to make them disobey is to force it.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
what
Don't
you
look down.
want is that's right. What you want is for them to see the value in it as
Mhm.
well and
Yeah.
embrace it because they see that this is going to make me better if I
Yeah.
follow some of these,
Yeah.
principles or apply
Yeah.
these things to my life or my organization. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this is great. Man, Jay, you just pull out good stuff every time. I like it.
Well, you
I
too.
like it. I like it.
This is
So,
great.
what are we going to talk about next time?
Well, next time is about let me look. I wish I had just known. It would have been a lot cooler.
Ah, that's okay. I think
Uh,
we're on
so
to number 6, right?
so this is number 6. Yeah.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry. Yes.
next week will be adaptability and resilience.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be kind of really kind of pulling it all together to
Yes.
really about being um it's a, kind of the whole idea of embracing discomfort, going back to that too, but it's knowing that
Mm.
things change and are going to change rapidly. And a
Yeah.
hardcore team knows that how we operate today may be very different than
Mm.
how it is tomorrow.
Yes, that will be a good conversation because it is hard. We do, if what you said earlier about like we like to find people that look like us or think like us, we also like to find processes and patterns and
Right.
pathways
Shortcuts.
that we can just make shortcuts from, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
this will be a good conversation. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Denise.
All
And
right.
so
Thank you.
so everybody knows too, if you're here, so there's changes happening to 10X Live. Still trying to figure out exactly what the future is, what direction we're going to go. So we may miss a week,
Yep.
from time to time. So this may not be fully a weekly thing like it used to be. So I will try and communicate the best we can on LinkedIn and hopefully get it back to a weekly thing.
Yeah.
But we got to go, and we
Good.
will see you next time. And Denise, thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Awesome.
Jay. Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Imagination's canvas, colors yet unseen. You paint with thoughts so vivid, a world that might have been. Challenges ignite you, spark a flame so bright. Your mind a constellation, guiding through the night. Adapting like a chameleon, ideas in constant flow. Your warmth invites collaboration, helping others grow.